No, there's no such thing as a perfect honeybee. It has to be created, bred, in other words. So not created in a strict sense, but developed by the hand of man.
Mid-August, 5 a.m. Already Brother Adam, master of the beehives, is at work. So too his army, recruits for a bleary-eyed annual ritual. These hives are off to the heather. There's urgency in the air, for the colonies must be sealed and loaded before sunrise when the bees begin to fly. This is the story of a lifetime's obsession, the all-consuming passion of Brother Adam, Order of St. Benedict. His uncompromising objective throughout has been dragging good men from their beds for nearly 3/4 of a century and compelling him to watch their every move.
All the hive stands?
Stands, yes.
Stands. You've got some around the other side? No.
5:30, and the colonies are on their way. "40 hives, some 2.5 million bees on a journey from the spent summer bounty of the lowlands to the heather harvest of the wild granite plateau that is Dartmoor. This is classic migratory beekeeping, moving bees to a seasonal source of nectar. Nearly all the hives in Brother Adam's 14 honey production apiaries are to be carted to the moor. These dawn apiarists will unload 280 hives at discrete moorland locations. But these are no ordinary hives. They contain a priceless cargo, a life's work, a vast genetic bank built up over 70 years of painstaking experiment. They house what many regard as the nearest thing to the perfect honeybee. Little wonder their creator won't let them out of his sight, for this is the world's foremost bee breeder, Brother Adam. His devotees are legion. This father and son are commercial honey producers from Germany. Like dozens of Brother Adam's disciples, they spend their holidays laboring at ungodly hours without pay, happy slaves to the genie of the hives. Brother Adam has attempted what God and nature never managed, the production of a strain of honeybee entirely tailored to the needs of man.
Too many.
His bee has 5 essential qualities: good temper, disease resistance, prolificacy, that's the ability to generate plenty of offspring, a propensity for hard work, and a disinclination to swarm. With the hives in place, Brother Adam's super bees begin the final harvest of the year amid the honey fields of Dartmoor. The heather blooms for less than a month. But if there's nectar to be gleaned, these bees will get it. They're working at an altitude of 500 meters in the vagaries of the English climate. To excel here fits them for hard conditions anywhere. To appreciate why Brother Adam's bee is so special, it's necessary to understand the workings of the hive. At its centre is the queen, the egg layer, the only fertile female in the hive. Her entourage are workers, infertile females. The queen's just laid an egg in a cell of the brood comb, the hive's maternity suite. She's constantly emitting pheromones called queen substance, a chemical inhibitor. Passed from worker to worker, it prevents them trying to generate a rival. The queen's laying again, a job she'll do up to 3,000 times a day. Her egg is glued to stand upright at the bottom of the cell. Within 4 days, it'll have hatched into a larva, a sort of caterpillar stage. The larva is fed by worker nurses. On the 9th day, with food stored inside, the larval grubs are sealed in their cells. Behind the wax cappings, a 12-day metamorphosis. And here's the result. Another adult worker pushing into the most organized society on Earth, Bee City, population about 50,000. This worker, just moments after emerging, is already tottering to work. Instinct allows her no rest. For the first 3 days of adult life, she's programmed to clean the cells of the brood comb. The comb is the framework of the hive, built from the wax glands of older workers. The duties of the young worker have begun. 4 days later, she'll automatically switch to feed the queen. Then there are jobs like undertaking, ejecting dead bees from the hive. 101 chores, all of them programmed for an exact period during a life which can be as brief as 6 weeks. A worker on ventilation duty. Guard bees seeing off a wasp intent on stealing honey. A worker scout has returned to the hive with news of nectar. She signals her find with this wagtail dance. Her movements tell the others the exact distance and direction of the food. From 21 days till they drop dead, every worker is a forager. Their business is to collect stores for the colony, most importantly, nectar. This they harvest from flowers, sucking it directly into a honey stomach through a tongue that's like a vacuum cleaner. Laden with nectar, the return home is guided by a scent fanned aloft by bees at the hive entrance. Inside, the forager regurgitates the nectar, now a watery honey. It's been mixed with enzymes and processed in the stomach and must now thicken in the honeycomb. Another worker imbibes the new honey. Her job may be to feed larvae or to equalize food supplies among her sisters. Workers will pass food mouth to mouth and pheromone messages antennae to antennae. These foragers carry pollen in baskets on their hind legs. A quick check that there's space, and this pollen packer is topping up a cell. Pollen, like nectar, comes from flowers. It's vital to the bee diet, rich in protein, vitamins, and trace elements. These are cells of bee bread, a highly nutritious mix of pollen and honey. The queen still dispensing queen substance to her workers. And here at the center of the picture, the drone, the male of the species. His only function is to fertilize the queen, then he dies. Mating is on the wing. The queen's nuptial flight can mean mating with up to 12 drones. Their semen will last her a lifetime. The relative bulk of the drone can be measured on this brood comb. Top left are normal worker cells. Bottom right are much larger cells whence sprang the drones. Still bigger is the queen cell, built when the supply of queen substance, for whatever reason, falls off. The female larva inside is no different to any other. What changes her into a queen is the exclusive diet the workers feed her. Royal jelly. Within the sealed cell, a majestic metamorphosis. A queen is born, and immediately she's on the attack. To dominate the colony, she must eliminate her rivals. Here she's plundering the cell of a sibling. But this emerging queen makes an escape. Though not for long. It's a fight to the death. The escapee has taken several stings. She's dying. A bee will sting another bee and live. Against man, it's kamikaze. Human skin prevents the withdrawal of the barbed sting tip. The result? Disembowelment. A swarm, the consequence perhaps of overcrowding and shortage of queen substance. The queen is leading a mass migration, nature's way of propagating the species. The swarm begins to settle on a branch. Scouts hunt for accommodation. This one has found a place. Her dance tells where. The swarm departs for a new home well away from the old hive, where a virgin queen has remained with some workers. As swarming shows, the honeybee is a wild animal. The beekeeper merely provides a convenient shelter. Brother Adam's genius is not so much that of a superb beekeeper, but as a geneticist who's modified the behavior, the very nature of the bee.
Brother Adam's a very hard taskmaster to work for. He always puts his bees first, and I find that if you can oblige Brother Adam in doing your work correctly and rightly, got stung on a loop, then Brother Adam appreciates this from you. He doesn't like too many mistakes making when you're checking the colonies. He likes you to do your job thorough. And then at the end of the day, very often Brother Adam will reward you with a drink, or we'll sit down and have a discussion what may go on the next day.
Bruder Adam ist für mich der beste Bienenzüchter der Welt, den es gibt. Und wir sind praktisch immer, wenn wir bei den Bienen sind, dankbar, dass es ihn gegeben hat und seine Arbeit. Und was er auf dem Gebiet der Züchtung geleistet hat, das ist für mich eine wissenschaftliche Arbeit, eine echt wissenschaftliche Arbeit, ausgeführt von einem Praktiker.
He's got this driving force in him that'll make him go on until he once told me he'll die in his boots.
You have to be ruthless, but you also need the intuition. You see, not everybody can do that sort of work. To judge and to select, essentially, it's a gift.
In medieval times, Brother Adam's role as monastic beekeeper was vital, for beeswax kept the candles of Christendom burning. This is Buckfast, the Benedictine abbey in southwest England, where monks first worshipped 1,000 years ago. Brother Adam joined the community in 1910. In true Benedictine fashion, prayer and contemplation had to rub along with more temporal concerns. Whether abbot or brother, the life was of extreme physical toil, the rekindling of a monastery snuffed out 4 centuries earlier. Predating the Norman conquest, Buckfast had been laid waste, its monks dispersed during the dissolution of the English monasteries. Then, resurrection. In 1882, monks returned to Buckfast, first Benedictines, then regular intakes from Germany, practical men. Stone by stone, they rebuilt the abbey. The work was to take decades and require a constantly replenished labor force. This intake of novices in 1910 included one Karl Kerler, soon to be renamed Adam. He's on the left. Adam, like most of his peers, had been recruited in southern Germany, given to the Benedictines by his mother. He was just 12 and desperately homesick. Adam wasn't truly happy again until he began stonemasonry, work he relished, but his health wasn't up to it. He was switched to lighter duties, assisting in the apiary with the tetchy black bee of England.
Well, the old English bee, it had a number of very good qualities, but it had also a series of very bad qualities. And timber was one of them. And fertility was another. The queens weren't very prolific. So, of course, it was usually small colonies. And the old native bee was extremely susceptible to occurring disease and was completely wiped out.
The disease struck Buckfast in 1915. A strange listlessness had overtaken the colonies. Whole hives were dying. It was a new disease, soon to be identified as acarine. By the following year, it had spread the length and breadth of Britain, literally exterminating the native black bee. There was no cure. Every native black bee at Buckfast had died. The only survivors were crossbreds, progeny of this bee, the Italian. By 1919, Brother Adam had been appointed head of the Buckfast apiary. Clearly, his priority was to rebuild the colonies. But how and with what? He immersed himself in study. He wanted to understand the principles of selection, whether artificial or natural. Specifically, how could the apparent acarine resistance of the Italian strain be combined with useful characteristics of other bees? In Germany, Ludwig Armbruster, the bee geneticist, had been working on the application of Mendelian law. He'd discovered why Gregor Mendel, the Austrian monk who'd first described the principles of heredity, couldn't get them to work with the honeybee. driving on Dartmoor, it struck Brother Adam how he could succeed where Mendel had failed. The answer was to establish a breeding station up here, totally isolated from other bees. A farmer rented him this site. It was 1925, the start of a breeding program that was to reshape the honeybee.
Pleasure. Walk on, old man. Walk on, walk on.
What Mendel never knew was that the queen flies several kilometers from the hive and might mate with a drone from a foreign colony. It made nonsense of supervised breeding. At this spot, Brother Adam would have no such problems. The priority was to breed from his surviving acarin-resistant Italian crosses. To ensure that they mated with stock of his choice, Brother Adam put selected drone colonies in the isolation apiary. These drones would be the only mates a queen would find on Dartmoor. At last, the breeder, rather than nature, was in charge.
Nature breeds for survival under any conditions, where our primary aim, of course, is the performance, the production of honey.
A dab of royal jelly is placed in each of these cups. Then, from a section of brood comb, fresh from the hive, a larva is teased. It's popped into a cup. The process is called grafting. Larvae are being artificially induced to turn into queens. Again, Brother Adam is overriding nature. The idea is to capitalize on a good cross and from it propagate whole batches of queens, either for further breeding or for sale. This hive will incubate the grafted larvae. Smoke quietens the occupants. A frame of 60 potential queens is slotted into the center of the brood chamber. Just as in nature, the host workers inside will feed and nurse the developing queen larvae. The artificial cells will be coated and sealed with wax. Meanwhile, workers shaken out to make way for the grafts climb back into the hive. A little syrup to supplement the colony's food stores, and the grafts begin to cook. "12 days later, in early June, the grafted queens are moved the 20 kilometers from the Abbey's home apiary to the Dartmoor breeding station. Tricky work. The transporter hive must be handled like porcelain. Brother Adam and his team are to distribute the grafts among the station's 130 hives, all of whose queens have been previously removed. And here's our frame of 60 cells. The host workers have done their job. This rack of cells is indistinguishable from nature's efforts. Every hive in the station is divided into 4 sections, tiny colonies called nuclei. 1 queen cell is introduced to each nucleus. In 24 hours, the queens will emerge. After 6 days, they'll fly and mate. Now it's late August, and time to see how the grafted queens have done. Comb by comb, Brother Adam examines each nucleus. He's looking for the queen and the sort of workers she spawned. How is she laying? Does the brood look good? Is there disease? And the bottom line, what's the honey like? Fritz Schauf, yet another volunteer from Germany, is gently chastised for holding combs horizontally instead of vertically. The queen could tumble off.
Besteht die Gefahr, wenn sie unter ist, dass sie wegfällt. Das kommt uns oft vor.
Most queens will overwinter in these nuclei. In spring, they'll be transferred to production hives, topping up the vigor of colonies whose job is the all-important business of honey gathering. Others, like this queen, go immediately for export. A buckfast queen has a worldwide market. Her wings are clipped to prevent her flying in case of swarm or accident. Then she's crated up for foreign climes, slipped into a mailing cage with a dozen workers and some candy. These, then, are the tools and techniques which over half a century have turned a simple Italian cross into the world-beating buckfast super bee.
We have reached a point where we are really satisfying compared to the old English bee.
But we still have to learn how the old master found and fixed the buckfast qualities, a genetic cocktail with more ingredients than Heinz have varieties.
57.
It had been a good season for Brother Adam. After 3 years of atrocious weather and little honey, the buckfast bees had yielded a surplus, a golden harvest. His new book was selling. The world wanted his breeding stock. There was honey from lowland clover and upland heather. The Benedictine ethos of self-sufficiency has governed Brother Adam's approach to bee breeding. External characteristics were for academics. His mission was to improve economic performance. And there was a personal spur. No honey meant no money. Then who'd pay him to breed a better honeybee? Since his quest for the perfect honeybee began, nowhere has been visited more often by Brother Adam than his native heath in Germany. And no one has offered stauncher support than Franz Fehrenbach, apple grower, bee breeder.
(1960) hat Bruder Adam in Kassel einen Vortrag gehalten über seine Imkerei. Und diesen Vortrag habe ich in der Bienenzeitung gelesen, ungekürzt, und habe gleich gewusst, das ist das Beste, das ist das, was ich suche. Und habe dann sofort versucht, ihn nicht nur zu verstehen, sondern auch zu kopieren. Also das alles genau so zu machen, wie er es macht.
Aber da ist schon mehr gut drauf.
Ja, weißt du, die hocken jetzt schon zusammen, aber wir gucken halt nochmal.
What first excited Fehrenbach were the hives Brother Adam used at Buckfast in England. Like those Fehrenbach uses now, they were of the American Dadant design. A large brood chamber, the bee-rearing area, meant the prolific buckfast bee could maximize its offspring. Brood chambers in traditional German hives couldn't accommodate such vigor. But it wasn't until Fehrenbach started using buckfast stock that he fully appreciated the qualities of the bee itself. Till then, he'd been a hobbyist, working with the German Carniolan and a bad-tempered mongrel strain from the Black Forest. The docile buckfast was a revelation. Today, Fehrenbach has gone commercial, a thriving business entirely based on the buckfast line, of which he's Germany's proudest advocate.
Ja, die Buckfastbiene, die ist schwarmträge, viel schwarmträger wie andere Rassen und brutfreudig und macht dadurch oder schafft dadurch starke Völker. Und es ist eine Tatsache, dass die stärksten Völker am meisten Honig bringen.
From his 300 colonies, Fehrenbach is averaging 10 tons of honey a year, twice as much as sister bees are yielding at Buckfast. But this is the Lake Constant region of southern Germany, a more profuse environment. Apples, cherries, rape, raspberries, dew honey from the woods. Here, the buckfast can realize its potential. To Fehrenbach, it's a bee with a double-edged advantage.
Im Vergleich zu allen anderen Rassen, mit denen ich schon gearbeitet habe, und es sind fast alle, die erreichbar waren hier bei uns, ist die beides. Die bringt mehr Honig und bringt ihn mit weniger Arbeit.
As the Vatican is to the Catholic Church, so Buckfast Abbey is to apiculture. For an international network of agents and distributors like Fehrenbach, Buckfast means bees rather than Benedictines. From the cell he's occupied in this outbuilding since 1919, Brother Adam has masterminded a miracle. He's turned a monastic sideline into a worldwide enterprise, the creation and marketing for Super Bee.
I've always maintained that the buckfast bee must do its own propaganda. If it cannot do that, well, the sooner people forget about it, the better.
Brother Adam's ambition to breed a perfect honeybee began some 70 years ago when he inherited the Buckfast apiary. Acarine disease had wiped out all but a handful of resistant Italian crossbreds. Times were hard, but he managed to interbreed the Italian crosses with imported strains to produce a useful line. Then came the Second World War.
There was a low mist hanging in the valley, and the military had got targets on the hillside. Their targets were hidden by the mist, and the beehives were in view, and of course they assumed that the white beehives was their targets that they were firing at. Brother Adam and myself were there checking the colonies, and we were just on the point of starting, and machine gun fire rattled across the top of the van, and they were striking the hives on the hillside. The bullets were actually going through the hives. And Brother Adam was very concerned about this, and he didn't seem a bit worried. He just simply turned round and walked up towards where the gunfire was coming from. And the next thing, I just heard the gunfire stop, and there was an officer on the hillside waving his arms. And when we came back and had a look at the hives, there was quite a number of hives had bullet holes through them. And there was also another beekeeper, Brigadier General Gompertz, also had some bees alongside of ours, and he's got shot up more than ours. But being a military man, this was very good for Brother Adam, because Brother Adam complained bitterly to him, and this man got straight on to the War Office, and they got compensation from the War Office for the damage to the hives and the loss of the queens.
Brother Adam had no doubt. Providence had ensured his survival, for the real work of improving his honey bee had yet to begin. After the war, he embarked on a series of great journeys through Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. Impressed by the vigour which imported French queens had injected into his early strain, he sought even better genetic material. He was looking for qualities that could be plucked from pure native bees, strains in danger of dilution, because even then beekeepers were beginning to introduce foreign queens to their hives. Muslim, Christian or Jew, if their queens looked promising, Brother Adam posted them home. The journeys covered some 200,000 kilometres. The first was in 1950 through Provence, the Alps, Italy, Germany. 2 years later, it was Algeria, the Levant, and more of southern Europe. In 59, to the Black Bees of Iberia, and in 62, 6 more Mediterranean countries, returning in 76 to the Sahara. 5 bees were outstanding: the French for its honey gathering, the Greek for its good temper, the Egyptian for its calmness, but best of all, the Saharan bee of Morocco and the Anatolian of Turkey.
That the outstanding characteristic of the Anatolian, it's also a first-rate honey gatherer, but the outstanding characteristic is its thriftiness. You see, in winter it uses a minimum of stores, which is a very important consideration. And on the other hand, the bee found in the oasis of the Moroccan oasis is itself, in its pure state, it's not prolific, but when crossed, it's extremely prolific, which is, of course, a characteristic of great importance in honey production.
Gregor Mendel, pioneer of genetics, was Brother Adam's inspiration. At his monastery in Bohemia, Mendel had not only worked on heredity in plants, he'd tried to breed bees. This was his bee house. Mendel's genetic theory was correct. His knowledge of bees was not. Mendel had crossed a red flower with a white. The colour red was controlled by a dominant gene, big R. The white by a recessive gene, little r. The result was pink, carrying both genes, big R and little r. But when the pink self-pollinated, that is, crossed with itself, the progeny segregated into 1 red, 2 pink, and 1 white. Of these, the red would breed true, so would the white. But the intermediate pink would always segregate into 1 red, 2 pink, 1 white, generation after generation. Mendel had shown that genes cannot be changed, simply rearranged. For the breeder, the trick was to rearrange them so that desirable genes dominated and could be fixed to breed true. With the honeybee, Brother Adam was dealing with 16 important genetic factors, some dominant, some recessive. At the isolation apiary he'd established on Dartmoor in 1925, he set out by trial and error to breed into the Buckfast strain the desirable genes of his imports. But in which type of bee, queen, worker or drone, were these factors to be judged? Characteristics like fecundity, the ability to produce lots of workers.
In the case of the honeybee, it's the fecundity, that's the characteristic which the queen manifests, you say, and which the bees don't manifest. On the other hand, of course, well, the bees have a finger in the pie, because the fecundity, to some extent, also depends upon how the bees feed the queen. You see, if they don't feed the queen adequately, she cannot produce the eggs. So it's a dual dependence.
Brother Adam was faced with a geneticist's nightmare, added to which was another wild card.
Plenty of drones there.
The drone, the male bee, was the product of parthenogenesis, born from an unfertilized egg. He had a mother, but no father, and carried only half the chromosomes of the queen. The laboratory was to help Brother Adam put his breeding program under more control. This is the first stage of the instrumental insemination of a queen. A drone, who'd normally mate in mid-air, is about to yield up his semen. In nature, the drone dies after mating. Fertilization is his only function. Here, his semen is taken up by pipette. It'll need several drones to provide enough semen for one insemination. That squares with nature, for a queen outside would mate with up to a dozen drones, a complication in bee genetics of which Mendel was unaware. The queen, already quietened by a whiff of carbon dioxide, is prepared. She's blown into a tapered tube with an open end, positioned so that her rear is exposed for the operation. The skills of the surgeon have arrived in the apiary. Before the semen can be introduced, the queen's egg-laying tract must be opened. Inside is a sac, the spermatheca. In it, the queen will store the semen, enough for a lifetime. Instrumental insemination gives Brother Adam 100% certainty over his breeding pedigrees. He knows precisely which drones contributed to this batch of semen. The technique also means that useful semen can be flown in from anywhere in the world for use in the breeding program. And where regulations prevent the export of queens from Buckfast, as to the United States, semen can be sent instead. This way, Brother Adam supplies his agent in Texas. There, Buckfast semen is used to rear 30,000 queens a year for sale to beekeepers. "5 days after insemination, the queen begins to lay. Thus does Brother Adam synthesize the fruits of his travels. But he doesn't decide things on a season's performance. He assesses results over a number of years. If queens aren't up to it, they're eliminated. Only by rigorous culling, by recording, crossing, interbreeding, has the Buckfast super bee emerged. It's economic performance that counts. How heavy is the honey box atop the production hive? Here in the apiary, Brother Adam's experiments must prove themselves.
Oh, that's quite heavy, that one. Now, this is the queen excluder. That prevents the queen from coming up through into the honey box, because we want to keep all the brood below the screen so that the top box has just the honey in. Take this off carefully. We usually look at that at a quick glance to make sure the queen's not on there, because it's important not to lose the queen. And then this yellow stuff here, what you can see, this is propolis, which the bees glue the hive together with and seal all the cracks to make it draft-proof. The division board there. Now the first few combs on the outside are the honeycombs. And this is where the bees are storing their honey here. You can see it all shining in the comb.
But this honey is not for taking. It's on brood comb, food for the bees themselves. Man's harvest comes from the honeycombs in the box above the brood chamber. The queen, who's much bigger, is excluded from the honey box by a mesh which allows through only the workers. Since she can't lay eggs there, the combs are used exclusively to store honey surplus to the requirements of the hive. It's for these combs that beekeepers keep bees.
And we'll try and see if we can find the queen. She should be about here somewhere. Well, here she is. And she's got one wing clipped, which we do for marking the queen for our own use, and also it prevents the queen from flying off from the colony in a swarming period. You see, she's a young queen, this one. Brother Adam usually keeps the queens for about 3 to 4 years at the longest. Today she's not doing a lot of egg laying because the bees are bringing in a lot of fresh nectar and they're filling the cells which she should be using. But when they move the honey up tonight, then she will most probably start to... Come on, come back here. She will most probably start to do some egg laying again. She's looking around, but when you expose a queen to the light like this, their natural instinct within the hive is gone, you see, because they like to be in darkness. They try to get into the, out of the sunlight, into the shade.
It proved an average season at Buckfast. This colony brought home something under 20 kilograms of honey. Overall, Brother Adam's 320 production hives yielded some 5.5 tons. In the circumstances, it was quite a crop, for the rainfall in this part of southwest England is enormous, 165 centimetres a year. And modern agriculture works against the honeybee. Year by year, wildflowers and useful crops disappear. Most pesticides are not bee-friendly. If his bee can produce at Buckfast, it should excel anywhere. That's Brother Adam's selling point, and the figures prove it. Of 5 top strains tested by the University of Minnesota in 1980, the Buckfast yielded best. A French Buckfast colony gave 230 kilograms in 1983. In Denmark in 1985, a single hive produced 350 kilos, surely a record. Brother Adam's achievement has brought international acclaim. Books, lecture tours, and most importantly, the performance of the Buckfast strain have marked him the most celebrated bee breeder the world has ever known. He was awarded the Order of the British Empire, took tea at the London Waldorf with the novelist Barbara Cartland. They discussed royal jelly and virgin queens. But it's here among old friends in southern Germany that Brother Adam has his greatest satisfaction.
Die Carnica wird Aussehen von der Carnica wird dominant.
The talk is of bees, whether the features of the local Carniolan are dominant over the Buckfast when the two are crossed.
Beispiel griechische Biene.
It was this hobby beekeeper, Conrad Fink, who first introduced Franz Fehrenbach to the local boy-made good. Brother Adam had not only gained a German agent, but a companion and underwriter for his bee hunting expeditions. Fehrenbach and his son Klaus had direct access to a bee, which would greatly benefit their business. This is traditional beekeeping as still largely practiced in South Germany. The bee house is home to a battery of hives. In Herr Fink's case, Carniolans live cheek by jowl with colonies of Buckfast. In the 19th century, Mendel had kept his bees this way. But the bee house has a profound drawback. It can't be moved. Sited between an orchard and a wood, these modern hives of Franz Fehrenbach benefit from apple blossom in spring and forest honey in autumn. In summer, they can be moved to other nectar sources. Migratory beekeeping he learnt from Brother Adam.
Bist da schon ganz schnell, ja?
A special day for Brother Adam. His first visit to the isolation apiary high in the Bavarian Alps, where the Fehrenbachs breed buckfast queens. Thoroughly German, Franz Fehrenbach has tried to create a replica of Brother Adam's Dartmoor mating apiary. This is a drone colony.
Hier fängt jetzt der Honig an.
So. Sehen Sie da?
The honeycombs have the raised white cappings of which Brother Adam is so fond. Such pristine combs sell well in shops. The old master is impressed. Like proud pupils, the Fehrenbachs parade their handiwork.
Also beginnen schon wieder ausräumen, weil es jetzt doch im Herbst ist.
Ja.
Ja, selbstverständlich.
The Fehrenbachs raise and sell 100 breeder queens a year. They're one of 2 distribution outlets Brother Adam has in Germany. The other is a cooperative which generates some 800 buckfast queens a year on an island apiary in the North Sea.
Etwa 3 Aufsätze gefüllt, nicht? Aber dann war es schlagartig aus.
Sieht Sie, sie sind schwer.
This colony is packed with honey.
Halt, jetzt bist du vor der Wahl.
Und Elend verbaut. Da gibt's frischen Honig.
Ja, frischen.
Aber was weil verbaut ist. Und
Klaus Fehrenbach removes the honey boxes so Brother Adam can examine the brood chamber below. These buckfast bees display great uniformity of colour, a reassurance the strain is breeding pure.
ja, das sehr regelmäßig.
This brood comb is empty of honey, filled entirely with developing eggs and larvae, a healthy sign.
Nach der Königin.
Die Elisabeth.
The obviously prolific queen has laid right up to the edge of the comb.
Die Königinzucht brauchen wir im eigenen Interesse für die eigene Imkerei, weil ja Bruder Adam jedes Jahr, praktisch jedes Jahr, jedem Volk eine neue, unverbrauchte Königin gibt. Und damit steigt die Leistung und der Ertrag enorm an. Und die anderen Imker versorgen wir hauptsächlich aus dem Grund, damit die Buckfast eine größere Verbreitung findet, dass wir über mehr Erfahrungen in unserem Land verfügen, nicht nur wir allein, weil ja die Trachtverhältnisse unterschiedlich sind. Und wenn eventuell einmal bei Schwierigkeiten, wenn Völker ausfallen oder Naturkatastrophen, dass wir also die Biene nicht verlieren, sondern immer wieder auf die Biene zurückgreifen können.
Das ist anders wie der Heidehonig bei Ihnen in England.
Klaus explains that alpine honey differs from the heather honey of England. It's from pine and dwarf rhododendron, the alpine
Die
rose.
Alpenrose und auch die, was sonst noch blüht hier.
Das ist auch sehr...
It tastes very good, says Brother Adam, but a little thick.
zäh.
Zäh, ja. Späte Tracht, die wird dann dünner und
The
lecker.
bees can be stroked like pets, says Klaus.
Die Bienen, ja, die kann man streichen. Sind wie Haustiere.
No one would believe it, says Brother Adam. An idyllic day in a bee-loud glade. It's September 1987. These few days in Germany are a prelude to a great adventure. Brother Adam is relaxing, building his strength, visiting friends and family. He's staying with his cousin Maria. She lives near Biberach, close to the old farmhouse where Brother Adam tended livestock as a child. He left for Buckfast at the age of 12. He was born in this very room in 1898. But Brother Adam is preoccupied with the future. Even now, in his 90th year, he's still seeking useful genetic material further to improve the Buckfast bee. Within hours, he'll be on his way to the heart of Africa, leading an expedition to hunt the elusive black bee of Kilimanjaro. Tanzania, 1987. The search is on for the African queens. Brother Adam is heading for Kilimanjaro. In 90 years, his first foray into tropical Africa. It could all be an expensive wild goose chase, for the honeybee Brother Adam seeks has never been satisfactorily identified. Classified Apis mellifera monticola, it's thought to inhabit the slopes of Kilimanjaro.
In my opinion, I don't believe pure monticola is existing. This is because we have swamps going from the mountains to the lowlands, and certainly bees must be breeding. So I cannot ascertain that a pure monticola exists. And if it is to ascertain, more research is required.
But academic investigation is not Brother Adam's mission. His sojourn is strictly pragmatic, like a 19th century horticulturalist collecting plants in China or South America. He's in Africa simply to discover whether monticola or any bee like it exists. If it does, then he'll ship some queens back to England for experiment. They'll be crossed with the world-famous Buckfast strain, which he's bred over 70 years at his monastery in Devon. Even his super bee might benefit from some monticola genes. To this end, Brother Adam has assembled his expedition. There's Rosalind Fehrenbach, a medical doctor from Germany, whom Brother Adam has known since she was a child. Her father, Franz, with the cap, and the Dutchman, Michael van der Zee, both bee breeders. And from Devon in England, Leslie Bill, and bee disease inspector Wally Davey.
How many shillings?
300.
Ah, you're expensive. Huh? 175. A deal? 175.
Before Kilimanjaro, the expedition will search here, on Mount Meru. But first, a little education at the government's beekeeping centre in Arusha. Brother Adam is the guest of Director Hassan.
The combs have been built across. And as you see here, yes, we have this one. It's very black. It's black and it's different, yes, from the rest of the other. That's why I think that I thought it's better for you to see the hives and the lowland. Yes. And when you see the bees in the upland, you can identify the difference.
Reputedly, monticola is black, unlike the aggressive lowland bee, which is yellow.
What color are the queens? Are they yellow or black?
It might be yellow or black, because we see different.
That's a good one.
It's a good comb.
sehr gut for me, John. Nice for me.
The colony is mixed, yellow and black. Michael van der Zee makes a find.
I've got the queen here, Brother Adam.
Yes. I can see the markings now. She has got the, like the Oriental, Middle East piece. She has got the black rings.
And can you see the drone?
Yes, the tones are black.
Very black.
Yeah, very black. I mean, I got heartless tongue. And I was surprised how they're undoubtedly aggressive, but not as aggressive as some of the bees I've seen in other parts of the world.
And now to the mountain.
Bruder Adam, jetzt müssen Sie aussteigen. Jetzt geht's in die Büsche.
Ja, sind wir endlich angekommen, wo wir die Monte finden.
But Brother Adam has had a mishap.
So, da haben wir für Sie extra einen Sessel.
Ja.
At the hotel, he'd fallen and badly cut the back of his head. Nothing was broken, but he'd collapsed at hospital after a local anaesthetic. It was some hours before he'd recovered sufficiently for the wound to be stitched, but Brother Adam had insisted the expedition continue, hence the chair. Please complain if you don't feel like the Pope, jokes Fehrenbach. The bearers are at 2,500 meters on Mount Meru. According to the German entomologist Friedrich Rutner, the Monticola type should be found on Mount Meru and Kilimanjaro from this altitude upwards. Rutner had collected specimens from this very spot. And there, says Fehrenbach, is beekeeping from the Middle Ages, the suspended log hives traditional to this part of Africa. Some help to focus his pre-war Exacta camera. Today is for observation only, as Brother Adam regains his strength. Bees are certainly using the hive. Whether his picture is of a Monticola colony cannot be determined, but Brother Adam is satisfied. He's seen for himself the remoteness of the hives and how difficult they'll be to reach. Tomorrow, he'll go higher on the mountain with the beekeeper whose logs they are. Next morning, at 3,000 meters, the vehicles are dismissed.
There was Dr. Smith, and he gave a lecture in Madrid. And that's where I heard first of the Monticola. It made a very big impression, but I cannot remember details. He merely said that it was black and that it was a good temperature.
After a trek of 5 kilometers, the guide makes a slightly wishful announcement.
Here is the Monticola, gentlemen.
Ah, sind auch Bienen drin?
Ja.
Siehst du welche fliegen?
The hive is occupied, but Brother Adam cannot see.
Ja,
Doch,
können Sie
vorne.
gut sehen?
Da ist das Flugloch. Da vorne. Wo der Schlitz ist.
And so, to catch a queen. Old John, the beekeeper, must climb the tree to let down the hive. And since no one knows the disposition of the bees, protective suits are de rigueur.
Können Sie vielleicht
Even Brother Adam, who's never donned a bee suit in his life, agrees to wear a veil. Less than 48 hours after his accident, he's bearing up well for a man in his 90th year.
Darf ich helfen?
Log hives are kept in trees to protect them from marauders like honey badgers. If you can't climb trees, you can't keep bees. The hive has to be unhooked from its branch and lowered by rope.
Lila funga. Hi.
Slow, slow, slow. Akiti. Njoo meu. Njoo meu. Yango. Akiti. Tala. Ndagwenda kaina anda. Utala. Tala katari. Miriam doi.
Precautionary smoke to subdue the nervous bees. Fehrenbach prepares for the worst.
Okay.
Kannst du Seil nicht locker lassen?
Can you leave the rope a bit?
Seil locker lassen?
Yes, more, you'll carry it.
Hip.
Habes. Das geht.
This way up.
Jetzt ein bisschen Rauch. Den
Far-
Luft weg.
Fast right inside.
Careful, it's all right.
Meanwhile, bees, which were foraging when the hive was removed, are returning. They're attacking old John. He needs the smoker fast.
You've got it? So we should turn it upwards. Yes. Yes. Slowly.
With the securing wires removed, the moment of truth.
So, jetzt schön umlegen. So nun.
Vorsicht.
Oh, das ist ein starkes Volk.
Ja, ja.
Oh. Schönes Volk.
Schön, ja.
Oh, das ist
Fabelhaft.
gar nicht böse. Die sind ja gar nicht böse.
It's a strong and beautiful colony, wonderfully docile.
Jetzt vorsichtig raus.
Ja.
Gucken wir gleich, ob sie aber lieber abgehauen haben.
Haben Sie die Wabe?
Ja, ich hab sie. Schön.
The brood comb is especially healthy.
Wunderbare Brot. Gucken Sie mal, wie gesund. Eine schöne, helle Königin.
A fleeting glimpse of a superb queen. She's very big.
Ja. Du, jetzt lege ich die wieder rüber.
Ja.
Und dann guckst du.
Ja.
Da haben wir sie, eine wunderschöne Königin.
Fehrenbach has her. Marvelous, he says. A brown queen. Get her in the cage, says Brother Adam.
So, jetzt müssen wir noch ein paar Bienen haben.
And that's how she'll travel to Europe, in a balsa wood container with 10 workers to feed her candy.
Ab mit dir. Nein, ich muss sie selber fangen.
No, he will do them himself. That's easier.
The bees are dark and docile, but are they Monticola? And most importantly, will their undoubted ability to resist chilly nights up here on Mount Meru make them good overwinterers in northern climes? It's this quality which really interests Brother Adam. Next day, to the heat and humidity of the lowlands, 150 kilometers across country to Magugu. Fish farming, molasses and seed growing. This is the Marios estate, whose latest commercial venture is honey, produced from the fierce yellow bee of Africa, Apis mellifera scutellata. Brother Adam has been invited by the estate's managing director, Zuhir Karimji, to inspect a hive and take a queen. Van der Zee gets the queen, but already the party is under bombardment.
Get a comb out, please.
It's a matter of grabbing 10 workers and running. They're stinging his hands. Bees from all over the apiary are joining the attack. Protective suits and no defense. More from politeness than good sense, the visitors persist.
That's 5, 4. One's 10.
Scutellata is for the beekeeping brave.
Here we grow.
The temperature is 35 degrees Celsius, and Brother Adam is still in a three-piece suit. The bees have chased him half a kilometre, and despite the best attentions of Mr. Karimji plus homegrown fish and chips for lunch, the truth must be told.
How did you like our bees?
Well, of course they're extremely aggressive. And it's the first time I have been, well, in North Africa, and well, I've been dealing with some of the worst temper bees, but those here surpass all the experience I've previously had.
Nice.
And their aggressiveness.
The lowlands have nothing to offer, so it's to Africa's greatest mountain, Kilimanjaro. At about 2,000 meters, a charming encounter on Kilimanjaro's western slopes. Brother Adam and the Fierenbachs have discovered a tiny Catholic church at the village of Simba. It's a timely interlude for reflection because the expedition is taking its toll. Since he began his great journeys in 1950, Brother Adam is having to admit for the first time that perhaps he's mortal. Africa is a tough nut. Young Dr. Fierenbach has strongly advised him to let the others do the hunting. Reluctantly, he accedes. The decision will have repercussions, but for the time being, the expedition has a single objective: Monticola or bust. The hunters are to climb to 3,000 meters in virgin forest where lion and buffalo roam. In there, according to Ruckner and Smith, should be found the elusive black bee. The docility of Monticola is thought to be due to its isolation on the mountains, where it's been largely left alone by man. Ruckner and Smith had not only reported it here, but on Mount Meru and Mount Kenya. The yellow Scutellata, on the other hand, had always been plundered in the lowlands. To survive, it had evolved a ferocious temperament and an inclination to swarm at a moment's notice. At this altitude, it's not clear how much the black and yellow races have interbred. The task, however, is to find the black queens described by Ruckner and Smith.
Michael? Yes, of course there are some more hives.
Yes, I know that.
So you can inspect this.
Just inspect and see how they are, and if it isn't quite what we're looking for, we'll go to the next.
All right.
Dry grass and elephant dung fuel the smoker. The beekeepers of Kilimanjaro.
Can you open this on this side?
Yes. The hive has a convenient peephole.
Right, careful, smoke. Smoke them first. Ah, there they are.
But the bees are disappointingly yellow.
Yes. They're quite nice. Frans, was het
Van der Zee seeks advice. The question, says Fierenbach, is whether Monticola should have any yellow or be entirely black as described. So far, we haven't found a pure dark bee. Perhaps we should climb higher to where the forest gives way to open country.
Right. We will just close this hive and keep it in mind, but it isn't quite what we're looking for.
But this one is.
Turn it over. That's right. Careful, we don't want the combs. There's plenty of brood, they're very strong. We'll put this up close.
The first reasonably dark colony of the 3-day hunt on Kilimanjaro.
If a few people watch that end for the queen, we'll start taking the combs out on this end. No, she isn't here yet. Ah, there she is.
Fierenbach cuts one of the queen's wings to stop her flying in case of accident at either end of her shipment to Europe.
These are predominantly black, and they must have migrated from the hills downwards in times where it was difficult and cold up there. So it isn't actually the same type as we predominantly found around this area. So that makes it a quite isolated case. They're very gentle. They were a bit on the touchy side defending their hive, which is actually good. But actually after we opened them, they've been quite docile.
The Europeans are becoming increasingly deft at lowering the hives.
Careful, careful, careful.
Van der Zee and Fierenbach are in the bow. The English pair, Wally Davy and Leslie Bill, are at the receiving end.
Bring it down. Bring it down. Right, bring it down.
Bring it down.
Anybody help me? Yes, I'm underneath.
Yeah, let it down. Yeah. Let it go. Yeah. Come on.
Somebody to help.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, we try.
It's good, good. Langsam, langsam. Ja, wohl auf der Bubel nehmen.
We got it. Come on. I got it. Right. Okay. Take it off me now. Where are you going? Good.
That went all right, didn't it?
Smart. Well, it's only a big colony.
That's a good colony. Wieder eine schwarze.
Yeah. Whoa, whoa.
Königin da.
No queen on the top side. They've got
Is een kleine.
nice compact brood. I don't see any eggs in this comb at the moment.
Is een kleine sfeertje.
It's a small colony, actually. You can see where all the brood's emerged. I'm just checking there's open brood here, so we're getting close to where the queen has been laying. There she is. She's a very dark queen.
Ja, dat is een donkere koningin.
Yes, says Fierenbach, she's dark. The workers are dark too. From what we're told, this should be the Monticola.
Ja, die Monticola zijn. Nach allem, was wir wissen.
Everyone agrees. This queen is the best and from the most regular colony yet, blacker than some of the earlier finds. Brother Adam should like the dark bees she spawns.
They're much more uniform overall. They're very quiet. There are one or two here that have slightly lighter coloration with the orange bands and the black tip. And they're a little larger, so I think on the whole he ought to be very pleased with this particular strain.
Altogether, the expedition has secured 7 dark queens from the mountains, 3 of them today. But Leslie Bill is unhappy. She wants to spend longer on Kilimanjaro, opening more hives, taking a bigger population sample. Van der Zee and Fierenbach feel this isn't really Brother Adam's purpose, but they'll let him decide. Brother Adam awaits anxiously.
Aber vorsichtig, gell? Erst wenn sie da sind.
We've made it, says Fehrenbach.
Ah, we have got your queens with us.
How are you, brother?
War prima.
Very good news for you.
Es hat erst Schwierigkeiten gegeben. Ja. Die Imker da hinten nichts von.
But where's the English contingent, asks Brother Adam.
They're there, Brother Adam. They're coming up behind.
They're coming up
on this side.
Oh, yes.
Most of those we looked at today, bar one, were African mongrels. They were yellow and black mixtures. One of them was quite good, but if they're the queens you want, I'm quite happy to just keep quiet. Do you understand what I'm saying? Could you hear what I was saying?
Yes, I think.
We got you some queens, Brother Adam.
Yes.
We got, Frans, wie viele Königinnen have you mitgenommen?
3 today, confirms Fehrenbach. And the thesis about the black bee is not right. However high we went, we still found mixed-colour bees, although they were rather prettier than the dark ones.
Mr. Hassan has got some information about the bees we saw in the woods, Brother Adam.
Oh, yes.
And he can better tell you about them.
Yes, I would like to know, because
Yes?
that's important.
And the bees, most of the colonies were not all black, but we managed to get black colonies.
Oh, yes, oh, yes.
So probably after propagating, you'll be able to tell whether the queen was a mixture of a sort or something like that. But we cannot be sure of the purity, really.
So that was really an assumption when they said that beyond a certain height, you'll find the Monticola exclusively. That isn't correct.
I cannot say it's correct.
Yes, yes.
It is not correct at all.
No.
The old bee master had exploded a myth and possibly got what he wanted too. His true interest in Monticola had been for its potential resistance to cold. Bred with his super bee, it might well enhance the overwintering prowess of the Buckfast strain. Purebred or cross, if the queens he'd taken from the mountains carried this cold-resisting factor, then Brother Adam was content. That evening, he called off the expedition.
Well, a cross would serve my purpose, but I wouldn't. It couldn't be classified as a mongrel because it must have a certain stability. It mustn't vary to such an extent that it would take me years and years to fix anything. What we consider a pure strain, you see, from the scientific point of view, there is no such thing. All races vary considerably.
Uppsala, Sweden, the agricultural university. 2 weeks after leaving Africa, the hunters have exchanged bee suits for formal dress. This is a special occasion. Brother Adam, Order of St. Benedict, Order of the British Empire, is about to become an honorary Doctor of Science. The doctorate recognizes Brother Adam's services to the advancement of apiculture. In the history of bee breeding, no one has achieved more, no one has maintained a single objective for so long. The genetic qualities he's synthesized over 70 years are second to none. Whether the African queens can edge his strain closer to perfection will only be proved in England, within the beehives of Buckfast.